So this one I had recently enough, I suppose, like maybe a month or two, definitely before quarantine. And it was not the worst one I've ever had, but it definitely touched on some fears I have, and it made me uncomfortable, and I didn't have the best time sleeping after this one. But so basically I was in the dream, I was sitting in like an office chair, and I was staring at a bunch of screens. Like, I was like a security guard in some building or something. And on the screens, there were people. And I didn't know the people. None of the people I recognized. None of them, like, were people I'd met. I'm sure a few of them were, like, movie stars or something. But there was no, like, common narrative between them. There was a bunch of black people, a bunch of white people, a bunch of straight people, a bunch of gay people, a bunch of guys, a bunch of girls, a bunch of non-binary people. Like, it was not specific in any way. So then, maybe, like, 5 minutes into the dream, because my dreams, I know dreams are only, like, a couple minutes, like, at max half an hour, you know, but, like, my dreams feel like they take, like, 8 hours at least. So, in this dream, I was watching the screens, and on the screens there were a bunch of people, all in these, like solitary confinement rooms, except there were 2 of them in each room. I remember that. It was like there was no mixture, no specific mixture. It wasn't like a guy and a girl or anything like that. It was like just 2 people in a room. So I was sitting there watching them, and I kept like clicking on the screens, and there would just be people in there just like pounding. I couldn't hear anything, but they would just be pounding and screaming and crying, and like a bunch of them were like fighting, and like they were just clearly in pain, and that was horrifying. Torture is one of those things that like always scares me, and it just like I love horror movies, and like horror movies are like I love horror movies basically, but I will never watch like the Saw movies because I just can't do that mentally. Also, if I laugh at any point, it's just because I'll probably laugh a lot during the last one, but I laugh to make myself feel more comfortable and like make jokes and stuff, you know. But so I basically, after that, I was just like 8 hours of that, and it was just horrible. It was just a really terrifying thing to watch, basically. So that was the security torture dream, I guess. It was so weird because there was nothing like, no narrative, no reason. It was just me in like a lab with a bunch of people. It was horrifying. But yeah, just to watch all these people in pain. So yeah. So this one scared me. It wasn't like, there wasn't anything torture-y about it. It wasn't like a nightmare per se. It was just a scary dream. So I have like a part of my family is from Germany. So my grandmother is from Germany, so a lot of her family lives over there, and one of her cousins died quite some time ago. So in this dream, he was still alive, and she was sitting at a table with him, and then someone else, it wasn't my grandmother, it was someone else, walks in, and my cousin and my grandmother are fighting, and then suddenly someone walks in. I don't know who it was. I think it was like, I don't know and I don't care, but I think it was a woman, so I'm just gonna call them she. But so she just starts chanting to my grandmother's cousin something in German, and then towards the end she switches over to English, and then she says, and I'll never forget this, "And when you die, I'll grind your bones and feed them to the bluebells." Which, like, that's not super nice. That's a little creepy. So that one wasn't like a scary dream. It was just creepy and chilling, that line, but I find that interesting, basically. So a lot of people I know are like, oh, you just need to stop watching horror movies and stop watching, like, scary videos on YouTube, you know? And, well, I think that would solve some of the problem. These dreams have been happening since I was, like, 3. I used to have a reoccurring nightmare when I was 3 that I was a werewolf hunter. And there was a werewolf, and the only way to kill it was to lure it into a cabbage store. It's really random, but the entire dream was, like, dark. And I would have to find and kill this werewolf. So, yeah. Don't know what that was. But then, I just kind of realized what that might have been, but that's for another day. Basically, I remember, it's just like, there's just like a bunch of random, I've never had sleep paralysis or anything like that. I've just had these, like, they're not night terrors, but they're close enough, you know? Like, it was just these horrifying dreams, basically. And, like, looking back, like, some of them are kind of funny, but the ones I've had more recently are, like, actually, it's getting to be a problem, and I've, like, talked to my therapist about it, but, yeah. So, they're just, like, the most, these dreams from when I was a kid weren't, like, anything too scary. I would always sleep with my door open, because there was a Goosebumps episode as a kid where, if I can find a photo, I'll insert it here. There was a mummy, basically, and it had, like, it would come for all the kids, and that one creeped me out, and I remember that very well, very, very vividly, but, yeah. There's just, like, so many things that I've been having, like, nightmares since I was, like, 3, so it's before I started watching horror movies. It's before I started watching scary things. It's just the way my brain's wired, I guess. So I don't know. This one's gonna be long, so, yeah. Get some popcorn and a blanket and hang on tight. So basically, when I was, like, 6, maybe, I watched a documentary with my dad called The Man Who Ate Himself to Death. And it was one of those, like, you know, like, those documentaries, but it was about a guy named Ricky. He lived in Guam, I think, and, like, it was basically about him trying to lose weight, and before he could actually lose weight, he died. Took some pills and died. It was fucking intense for a 6-year-old. But, basically, I had a dream about Ricky, but it was kind of played out in kind of like a Netflix documentary series way, where it was, like, Ricky, like, all the things that had been in the documentary, but then towards episode 6, someone says, towards episode 9, I mean, it was a 10-part series, I remember that. Someone said, oh, have you heard of that weight loss treatment that's been around for centuries? And, Ricky was like, no. And then they say, oh, well, they burn your body. Burn your body to a crisp. And I swear to you, like, so Ricky basically goes to do this, but before that, he watches, like, these old documentaries, like newsreels, and I have one in my brain. It's like a cowboy wearing a cowboy hat, and he's on fire, and he's, like, dancing a jig, because he's on fire, burning alive. And, I'm laughing because I need therapy. But then, basically, Ricky tries this, and in the dream, suddenly, I'm trapped in, like, this clear glass tube, and, like, I can't move. My arms, my legs, I can't move anything. And I figured out later what this was, but I see a bottle, like a champagne bottle, full of gasoline. Now, what's that similar to? I listened to a lot of Panic at the Disco. So, yeah, I figured out that was, from a song, Don't Threaten Me With a Good Time, where there's a line that goes, champagne, cocaine, gasoline, I'll never sing again. And then, so I get gasoline poured all over me who is Ricky, and then, sorry if you hear noises in the background, and then basically, there's a match, and I get lit on fire, and then I'm watching Ricky from afar as he burns to death. And there's a shot of his back, and it's, like, white from all the, like, because all of his skin is burnt off, except for in little chunks where it's, like coal black, because it's just been cooked. So that was the most traumatizing one, to date. That one was horrifying to watch. I literally woke up and, like, told my mom, like, hey, this was my nightmare I had. And that was my horrifying dream. And that was, yeah. These were my horrifying dreams. Thanks very much for listening. Follow my Tumblr, or else the mummy will be in your bed tonight.